Hello and welcome everyone. This is Rene from Reproducibility Teach, and Tracy and I have put a few slides together to discuss the author contribution statements using the contributor roles taxonomy, or short CRediT. This system provides a structured way to recognize and document the diverse contributions of researchers in a transparent and standardized manner. So let's explore why it matters and how you can integrate it into your research publications. An author contribution statement details the specific tasks each researcher performed in a study. Unlike a simple acknowledgement of authorship, this statement clarifies individual responsibilities. Let's look at an example of how such a structured statement can work. So here are a few real-world examples of well-defined author contribution statements. Notice how each researcher's role is clearly defined, from the conceptualization to writing and editing. The specificity here helps ensuring that contributions are accurately credited. In contrast, here's an example that does not qualify as an author contribution statement. Here, in this example, simply states that all authors contributed without specifying how. Such a statement does not provide transparency and fails to differentiate individual roles. In addition, there's an important distinction to be made between authorship and contributorship. Authors fulfill criteria for being an author and take responsibility by actively approving the manuscript. This has to do also with legal implications and ethical standards. For instance, the originality of the manuscript needs to be assured, and it applies to all authors. But authorship traditionally always implies the writing process. But many essential contributions, such as data curation or analysis, may not involve manuscript writing. Therefore, contributorship allows for a much broader and more accurate representation of research efforts. So why should I then use an author contribution statement? Scientific research is complex, yet authorship remains a primary factor in career recognition. However, the traditional authorship structure devalues especially middle authors and obscures the full range of contributions. By using an author contribution statement, researchers receive fair and transparent recognition for their work, which is often needed for career progression and evidence of productivity. Let me come back one more time to differentiate authorship from contributorship. As said before, authorship traditionally implies written contributions. For everything else, people use the acknowledgement section, which is really a non-standardized and unspecific way of recognizing contributions. Authorship decisions are often inconsistent and lack transparency. Some contributors are excluded, while others receive authorship without real contributions. Such practices undermine research integrity. Contributorship clarifies individual roles, ensuring that those who contributed are acknowledged while discouraging unethical authorship practices. By specifying contributions, it also supports career progression, funding applications, and hiring decisions. And this is where the CRediT system comes into play. The contributor roles taxonomy, or short CRediT, provides a structured framework of 14 standardized roles, from conceptualization to project administration. This taxonomy ensures clear and consistent acknowledgement of research contribution. In addition, this standard is machine readable and is already required in some submission systems for many journals. Of course, you can always include a credit statement in your paper, even if the publisher doesn't require it. So how can researchers then apply CRediT? The process is really straightforward. First, identify the roles that best describe your contributions. Then, discuss these with your co-authors and reach a consensus. Finally, include the credit statements when submitting the manuscript. CRediT should be incorporated already at various stages. Already, it's best to implement and think about CRediT during the project planning and define the roles early. Of course, then throughout the research process, an update of contributions may be needed. And at the stage of manuscript writing, ensure that the accurate representation of contributions makes it to the final paper. So here are some examples using now the CRediT taxonomy with these contributor roles. And you can see that many authors can assume multiple roles. Here are two more examples of properly structured credit statements. You can see that it varies. You can use a shorter abbreviated way, or maybe also a longer way with a sentence-like structure. Each contribution is mapped to this standardized role, making it also easy for researchers and readers to interpret. Using this format ensures clarity in the scientific publication process. And again, in contrast, a non-standard description that often sometimes describes the process that finally led to the manuscript and is not a valid contributorship after the CRediT taxonomy. Just one more consideration for implementation and to discuss how should small contributions be handled. If a researcher spends minimal time on a task without significantly shaping its outcome, should they be listed under that role? This is a key consideration when drafting the CRediT statement. So there are basically two different approaches you can take here. And finally, you need to agree on that strategy before writing the CRediT statement. Some teams choose to further specify the contribution levels using lead, equal, or supporting designation. This helps to distinguish major contributions while still acknowledging all contributions fairly. But this is optional and not part of the original CRediT taxonomy. I want to close with some good news of the growing number of publishers, including major journals like from BMJ, Cell Press, Elsevier. They all have adopted the CRediT system. This highlights its increasing importance in the scientific publishing process. And as a final step, I encourage you to draft an author contributor statement for your current or your past project. Engage with your co-authors to ensure accuracy and consider including a CRediT statement in future publications. And with this, let's make authorship more transparent and equitable. Thank you very much, and bye for now.